I always love having new guests because new guests mean new perspectives, and new perspectives are always a good thing. With that, after the open rolls, Sam from the It's All Been Done Radio Hour podcast will be here to talk about one of his favorite films, that being The Shawshank Redemption. I hadn't seen it in quite some time. I was so happy to pop it on and go back down memory lane. As anybody who's watched before knows, big fan of Clancy Brown. So, after the open rolls, Sam will be here and we will talk about The Shawshank Redemption. Sam, thank you for making it. I always love having other people's perspectives, both on films and, everything, because new opinions, new perspectives, it helps broaden the channel and make things better. Before I pressed record, we were talking about your familiarity with being in that editing process. Because...
So I have been very fortunate to partake in some short films, specifically a 48-hour film festival. We have one of those here in Ohio, specifically in Columbus. Do you say locations on this?
I say whatever I want.
Okay.
No, I'm not hiding.
Yeah, just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
So
Good.
So we go ahead and have those 48-hour film festivals. I've partaken in some, and we have one coming up this weekend here. So I'm very used to the editing process of going back, having to redo takes, and just non-stop, getting the whole process completed.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories from being in college was not participating in a 48-hour film festival, but piggybacking on some friends who were in it, filming their process, and then creating a documentary about it, because they used my home as the primary set for their film, because almost nobody else, because my life has been a little unusual. So everybody who I went to college with were people who logically would be in college because they just graduated high school. But because I went a different path and enlisted in the Army and deployed to Iraq and then went to college, I owned a home. And so when they needed a place to film a home, they were like, hey, you mind if we join in? I was like, absolutely, but I'm going to film you filming your project. And then, I got the after conversations and put it all together. And that ties perfectly into this film because its primary location is here in Ohio. Not Columbus, obviously, but, not terribly far away. That being Shawshank Prison itself, which is not really Shawshank because it's made up, but the location is here, and it really had a personality all its own. Like, when you first see the prison, I was just going over how beautiful it is, because it'd been a number of years since I'd watched the film. And, nowadays, you drive around, you see a prison, you're like, yeah, it looks like a prison, an unpleasant place. But this thing, the first time it's revealed, it's like, there's actually some beauty to this unpleasant place.
Yeah, but no, it has a lot of character. It's we're being close to it, so lucky we can go anytime we want. And they hold festivals currently at that prison, which is fantastic. It's also apparently one of the most haunted places in the U.S., which is another piece of character that it just brings to everything.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm always a touch skeptical that idea of most haunted. However, even putting that aside, the idea that so many, and that's the interesting thing about this film. It takes so much time, nearly 20 years, from the day that Andy shows up to the day Andy leaves. And they go a little past that, too, because we still see Red and the gang. But it's so smooth, is my point. His arrival, all the planning, all the execution, and it's just... Sometimes films struggle with time, but I think because it was in the central location and you can see the literal scars when the sisters are having their way with Senor Dufresne. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I believed it. I found it compelling, the story as it played out, and then when the guy who I felt like he just walked right out of the movie Grease, right? He comes in, the mutton chops, the hair. It was like Andy takes him under his wing. I was just like, man, this just feels like, again, it's an illustration of time passing, because Brooks is another example of that, where after spending the majority of his life in one place, now granted it's a very, very bad place, it's an uncomfortable place, but after spending so much of his life there, he couldn't wrap his head around how to live in another way. So
yeah, no, I mean, I think time is such that's such an important feature of the film, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just seeing as it goes by, 19 years, Andy's in prison for that time, and they really do a great job of aging the characters along with the story, both in maturity and in actual makeup and costumes. And,
absolutely,
and they make you truly feel it.
Yes.
And to kind of touch back a little bit, I'd say that one of the strongest aspects of the Shawshank Redemption is the characters, right? Mm-hmm. Such individualistic and fantastic, nuanced characters, and to even add to it, I think the prison is a character.
100%.
I think that is something that is interacted with and played with that isn't always as common, especially in a lot of movies where you're going between so many different sets.
It makes it impossible to feel it to the same degree this does, because you're always there. But yeah, on that idea of character, when we first get to Shawshank, I'm like, oh, Clancy Brown, not only do I love you because he was the voice of Lex Luthor in my youth, but I was like, oh, this is going to be our primary antagonist. I felt it, right? And then the more the movie plays, the more I remember, I'm like, wait a second, you're not as bad, or definitely not the worst bad that is even here. Like I said, you get the reminder of the sisters, then the warden, man, when he takes that turn as to revealing his true nature, I was just like, that's quality stuff, because early on, he puts on what I consider a pretense of, oh, here's the Bible, and it's something you'll need here, and I look forward to you finding the right path. And I'm like, so I just take him at his word, and then when it's taken to the most extreme, where he makes sure that a guy isn't able to put his hand on the Bible and tell the truth to allow his meal ticket, the warden's meal ticket, to get out of there and live free. I was just like, man, you are the worst of the worst. Like, some of these people, guards especially, but some of the prisoners too, are physically violent, but the warden, I feel like, is the most mentally manipulative, because when Andy says it's over, I'm not doing it, he's like, oh really, and just points out every way in which his life can get worse. I was just like, oh yeah, look at that, you're the worst of the worst here, even though you pretend that you're not.
Yeah, no, and I think you hit a key word there, was manipulative, right? 100%. I mean, you can see it almost from the onstart, but as he starts to take bribes to stop from taking work from other people.
Yeah. Thank you for being here at Mr. Super Oz. This video is going out, and this channel only exists because I, Oz, founded Gamble Comics, which first release was Everlasting Survivors, a 68-page graphic novel called All Day Long, available now. Follow the link in the description that will take you to gamblecomics.com. While there, you can get hats, shirts, posters, much, much more, but most importantly, the story itself.
And you start to see, his true feelings eke out into everything he's doing, and even if it's as small as calling another man's wife's pie shit or whatever it may be. But, he's really and truly someone who is manipulating every single person around him to make sure he can get what he wants, right? And how he can succeed, which I think is what makes a strong villain, an antagonist.
Well, I love that it took time. Like, if he was the most obvious adversary at the beginning, that's fine. But I love that it took the whole film before it all unraveled. It's much like how the reveal of Andy's plan, right? Because the warden being upset that he was here last night and he's not here now. What are we missing, right? And then he throws the rock and it goes to the poster and it all makes sense, right? But I feel like Andy's plan being revealed there at that moment where it's like, oh, he took the wall outside for walks and all this stuff. Yeah. It mirrors the path that the warden took to show us all who he truly was deep down. And I like that they both they played the long game.
Yeah.
Because in both cases, if I'm assuming writer, but the team, I'll say, wasn't as trusting in the audience, they could have rushed. And there was no rushing. Everything was done with purpose, and I'm a big fan of that.
Well, I mean, to kind of quote the movie here, when it comes to, making rocks and polishing rocks, it's pressure and time.
Oh.
And that's exactly what both building the antagonists, and when you have a 19-year span, and even in our own lives, you're going to have multiple protagonists and antagonists in your own life.
Well, and even the evolution of the same character within your own life. Because that's one thing I love about Clancy Brown's character is that while, yes, he started out as butting heads, when Andy got all the books delivered because he wouldn't stop bugging him about expanding the library, he basically just becomes very passive about it. He's like, get this cleaned up before the warden gets here, and walks away. Whereas if this was like day one of his character, he'd have beat him up because that's how upset he was. But so many things had evolved throughout the time, like not getting screwed on taxes and all these other things. I was like, I'm so happy with the way that it was done. I had already complimented who I assumed was the writer of the film for the very well paced out story, but when you brought up who the writer is and what he did, I thought, man, we just got to share that.
Yeah, no. So some people might not know this, but this is actually a novella written by Stephen King. That's why it takes place in Maine, because that's where Stephen King is from.
Absolutely.
He actually wrote this novella. Someone bought the rights for just $5,000 for this, which,
in the grand scheme of things, is not much.
It made a lot more than that. They sent that check to Stephen King. He never cashed it. He eventually sent that check non-cashed right back to the person who bought the rights. Just was saying, hey, in case you need bail money, here's the for your $5,000, which I thought is fantastic. But
Absolutely.
I mean, makes sense why it's such a good story.
Absolutely. That guy's got it when it comes to laying out a story.
Yeah, he writes 10,000 words a day. Right, that's what he might throw it away.
I need that dedication. I tell you what,
and that time.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, it becomes hard for me to figure out what I would do differently, which is really what it comes down to when I think about grading something. Like, anytime I can say, oh, this took too much time, well, I would edit it to be faster. Or I'm like, oh, you missed this key beat. And oftentimes I know that when they give you special features on DVDs, right? Yeah. And so with that, I landed on the great 5 out of 5 stars because, like, oftentimes I'll be thinking, oh, spectacular is like a thing that's visually stunning, right? And perfect is something hard to put my finger on. Like, I can't find the pulse of perfect. I just know it when I'm there, right? And love is like an emotional state of being where it's almost based around something intangible. Like, I think I've only given like 2 or 3 of them out the whole time the channels existed. And in the realistic sense, it's only because of what it meant when I first saw it before. So, like, for instance, a movie that I know isn't the best movie in the history of life got a love score, the first one on the channel's history, because it reminded me of my mother and watching it with her and her enjoying it. And so, what do you land on when it comes to the Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah, well, I mean, so you're going to understand there's a level of bias coming here because, as you mentioned previously, this is my favorite movie.
Exactly,
so,
which is, I'm cool with that. I mean, here's the thing. I always want people to talk
Mhm.
about things they're passionate about.
Yeah.
And so I don't even hide from that,
Mhm.
right? Like I said, I even have a score that built into the channel that is like, I get that I'm being ridiculous,
Yeah.
but that's okay, I'm allowed to.
Yeah. Now, I hesitate to always give something a highest score, so I wouldn't
Sure.
do it here, but I would give it perfection in my
Oh,
opinion.
that's awesome. See, I ain't mad at it.
Yeah.
So, here's a funny question for you.
Mhm.
Do you have sanitation experience?
Not full sanitation work experience like in the actual tunnels.
Sure.
But
So the reason I ask is it's been so often complained about in media
Mhm.
that HVAC vents aren't big enough for people to be in.
Mhm.
You know, Die Hard, for instance,
Mhm.
is a great example. And then because it's so culturally relevant that everybody's like, oh, you couldn't do that. It makes me wonder, would this system that the waste traveled through be big enough for him to exit through? I hate that it even came to mind because the
Mhm.
fact is the size of a pipe is not what this story is based on. Or, you know, but it's just one of those things that bugs me when I just don't know.
So in actual like sewers, like city sewers, I understand they can have actually fairly large pipes.
Sure.
And especially since you're moving things that aren't necessarily always liquid,
Sure,
you
that's
do
a
need
good
a
point.
bigger pipe.
Makes sense.
So I mean,
Well,
now I don't know the exact dimensions. I'm not going to.
I would also suspect because this system is tied to a prison,
Mhm.
you would want it to be large because you don't know who's going to be using it at what given time. So I was just curious.
Yeah.
Because it's so relevant to the story, you know, that because that's the exit strategy,
Mhm.
right? And then coming out, you know, a free man on the other side. So,
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
Amazing, awful, but
Oh,
at the
yeah,
moment.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But amazing.
I mean, it's as Red said. I couldn't imagine it. Wouldn't want to imagine.
Mhm.
And then the idea of seeing your friend in the place where you both planned to be, and you know, not having a care in the world. That's a great ending.
Well, someone once described it to me, which I actually kind of enjoyed. Was it that it was a heterosexual love story between two guys? Effectively, just saying, you know, and that's what I think why it struck a chord with me, even since you know when I first saw this movie, is that it's such a strong relationship that is built between these two men.
Sure.
That is, you know, it obviously was to a point where they are doing things to truly watch out for each other. I mean, for the fact that Andy, you know, has said, you know, let him know, hey, there's going to be this box underneath this volcanic glass rock.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, even before that,
Yeah.
it's the idea of here's the celebration of your 10 years with a poster, right?
Yeah.
It's not a big gift, but it's a recognition of we've been through a lot together.
Yeah.
And so, no, I'm 100% with you on that. I think that the idea, and how often does that even happen? I mean, I can think of one other movie off the top of my head where it's the goal of the film is to grow the friendship. Have you ever seen I Love You, Man?
Yes.
So it's what came to mind,
Yeah.
the idea of a story that's solely about friendship. But, yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, and he knew that Red was going to go the same way as Brooks, in the same mind. He's been there for 40 years, or
Well,
however much it is. So
I love
that small thing.
I love that they acknowledged it by him stepping on the same table and carving that Red was here too, because I feel like it was not quite 50-50, but I'll say 70-30 that Red might have gone the same way as Brooks had things not gone the same way with Andy. So, no, I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I look forward to you joining the channel in the future for games and other movie reviews. And, I mean, honestly, just whatever we feel like talking about. Because that's the beauty of the channel, is it's just a vehicle to get close, grow, you know, have that friendship and, you know, connection.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's great being here, and I always love to meet new friends, and I mean, not that you're a brand new friend, but
I know what you mean.
new friends here and anywhere else. So
Absolutely.
it's wonderful.